Want to get creeped out? I want to talk about someone who tried the shoebox telephone game and had a crazy creepy experience. If you don't know, the shoebox telephone game is one of those creepy games, rituals that you do to contact someone who is deceased. Essentially, you write that person a letter, tell them everything you want to tell them. You say it all into this shoebox telephone that you make. I did post a video explaining what it is if you want to watch it. You go to sleep, you wait until you dream that that person who is deceased is trying to call you, and then you're supposed to wake up and go listen to the telephone that you made. And some people have creepy experiences. This person did not wake up from the dream. So they were trying to contact their grandmother who had passed away about 5 years prior. We'll name this girl Helena. Helena wants to talk to her grandma. She loved her grandma. They were very close. She thought that this would be an interesting thing to try. She didn't think anything would really happen from it. So she followed the instructions, did everything she was supposed to do, wrote her grandma a really beautiful letter that she read aloud to her, and went to bed. That night, she dreams that she wakes up in her room and there is a soft knock at her bedroom door. She's thinking it's her parents. So she says, come in. And the door opens just a crack and she turns her head because the door is near her head and she can see a little bit of her grandmother's face. Her grandma goes, you called? And she remembers though that you're not supposed to say anything. And even though this is the dream, she's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything to my grandma. Like in the rules, you're supposed to only speak to the person when you're reading your letter. So she's like, I'm not going to say anything. She's thinking she's about to wake up for real right away and go listen to her phone. She just looks at her grandma and her grandma just sticks her hand through the crack of the door and like goes like, come here. So she gets up out of bed, opens the door. And when she opens the door, she can just see the back of her grandma. Her grandma is like wearing the same clothes she would usually wear. Helena is thinking this is really weird, but maybe this is what's actually going to happen is my grandma's going to communicate with me like this. So she starts following her grandma through the dark house. Her grandma leads her down the stairs and out the front door. And they're walking down the street when they get to this weird little park that she's never seen before. And in the park, there's a shed. And her grandma starts walking towards the shed. It's really dark out. And Helena is starting to get this really eerie feeling. She knows that she's supposed to be dreaming this. So she's thinking to herself, like, this is a weird dream, right? So she goes to pinch herself to see if it hurts. It hurt. Now she's thinking this is real. Like, this isn't a dream. What the fuck is happening right now? But it's her grandma. So she goes and she follows her grandma into this shed. And when they get into the shed, there are stairs that go down. And so they start walking down these stairs. And this part is so fucking creepy. As they're walking down the stairs, her grandma starts humming, which she says is creepy. Like she said, the way her grandma was humming was like giving her a pit in her stomach. So when they get down the stairs, there's this really long, dark room that looks like it's all cement. It's also really tall. There are pillars and there are also like stone pools of water all over the place, which I've also had a dream in a place like that was really creepy and weird. So I don't know, that also really struck me with this one. There are also like torches on the wall, so it's a little bit more lit down in this basement. It's still dark, but there are places that are a little bit more lit. So she goes and she grabs one of the torches and goes up to her grandma to get closer to her. And it almost looks like her grandma's trying to hide from her. She's like, okay, I'm going to talk now. She's like, grandma, what's going on? And her grandma just keeps walking down in this room. And she puts her hand on her grandma, turns her grandma around, has her torch. She's looking at her grandma. And she said, like, it looked like her grandma, but there were these weird characteristics. Like something about her nose wasn't the right size. Her skin seemed really, she described it that it looked almost like clay, like, but more real than clay, but like it was weird looking. Something was off. And the way that her grandma was looking at her was a way she had never seen her grandma look at her. It was like her grandma had this look on her face that she just couldn't recognize. But her grandma seemed cheerful still and had her grandma's voice and said, everything's fine. I just want to show you something. They keep walking down this room and it leads to this big stone door that her grandma pulls aside, which also she mentions like her grandma's like this tiny little woman and moves this door, but it is a dream, but she doesn't think it's a dream at the time. Okay. So they go into this room and in this room, there is a chair. Helena said she doesn't understand it. She doesn't know why, but she looks at this chair and she has a pit in her stomach. The hairs on the back of her neck are standing up. She just has such a terrible, weird feeling about this chair. Her grandma walks up to it and taps it, says, sit down. And she's like, no, I'm okay, grandma. And her grandma's like, Helena, sit down. I want to talk to you. And Helena's like, you know what? I'm just going to stand, grandma. Like, what do you want to talk to me about? And then her grandma's voice changes. Still looks like her sweet little grandma with a little bit of features that seem off, but her grandma's voice changes and gets really deep and scary and says, sit down. So Helena takes off running in the other direction. She can hear something following her, something running behind her, something breathing heavy. It sounds like the breath is very deep. She goes back up the stairs, back through the shed. She's running back to her house. And eventually when she's nearing her house, she doesn't hear anything behind her anymore. She turns around. She doesn't see anything. She doesn't see the park that was there. She doesn't see the shed. She's kind of just looking around, taking in her surroundings, super scared. She wakes wakes up. It is the middle of the night. She decides she's not going to go and answer the phone for the shoebox game ritual. And also weird, I'm recording this and I had to make a part 2 because I talk a lot. And the song that came on for me to record with TikTok was called Sleepwalker. Okay, weird. But anyways, she wakes up. She's in her bed. She's like, okay, this was a dream. I'm not going to answer the phone. I'm not going to go into my shoebox, which is my closet. And she leaves. Doesn't have a dream like that again. But a few weeks later, her aunt comes over and her aunt and her are visiting with her mom. They're having a coffee and she's like, Helena, I forgot to tell you. I had the weirdest dream about grandma. We were sitting in a park near your house. I've never seen it before. And she said, you have to tell Helena not to play that game again. Like, what? She was like shocked and her aunt was like, she was just so insistent in the dream. I felt like I needed to tell you, like, have you been doing something stupid? Helena's like, no, of course not. Let me know if you want to know about the dream that I had about a place that literally sounds like the same place. I had the craziest dream and it had sleep paralysis in it. So is this another mall world, but like a really shitty version? I don't know. Anyways, that's it for this one. See you next time.
I have a creepy story time. If this is the type of content that you're into, feel free to follow along. I post a scary story every single day. The person who submitted this wishes to remain anonymous, so for the sake of the story, let's call him Victor. Now, Victor is a medium, which means that he is able to help people who have recently lost a loved one in order to deliver a message, or if they're having any type of experiences in their home. Back in 2006, his wife, and daughter had recently moved to Texas. Around this time is when they came across a family that were having issues in their home. It started off very small, like pictures falling off the wall, dishes were being moved, and keys were going missing, but nothing too crazy, just mainly annoying. But as time went on, it started to get worse. Victor was called, so he decided to go over there and take a walk around. The minute Victor walked into this house, he felt it. Now, this family had 2 young children. One was about 4, the other one was 6. So Victor suggested that they lay baby powder on the ground to try to eliminate some of the noises and the things going missing, to see if it was maybe the kids messing around. The next day at about 9 a.m., Victor gets a call from the family. He ends up going to the house. When he walks in, they show him one of the rooms where they lay the baby powder, and very clearly in cursive, the name Casey has been written out. Now, Casey happened to be Victor's daughter's name, and there was no way that anyone in the house could have been the one to write it out because there were no footsteps around the name, 1, and 2, no one in the house knew his daughter's name. So Victor asked the family, you guys know anyone by the name of Casey? The family all responds with, no, we don't know anyone by that name. Victor then tells the family that he cannot help them and starts to quickly leave the house. The family, of course, asks, why can't you help us and who's Casey? Victor explains to them that Casey is his daughter's name, and the fact that his daughter's name was written in cursive on the ground to him is a warning. Victor believed that this was the D word that was trying to come after him because he was helping the family.
Let's read a true and scary story. Hello, I recently discovered your TikTok account and have been following the stories you've shared, whether they're from your own experiences or from others who've experienced similar things. I thought I would share mine as well. I'm not sure how spooky it will sound, but it's something I've never been able to explain. I live in southeastern New Mexico in what most people would consider a rural part of the state. This happened about 3 or 4 years ago during the summer. I remember that clearly because it was so unbearably hot inside our house, even with the AC running. My family was home, but I chose to sit outside on our front porch near the 3 trees in our yard because there was a cool breeze that night. It was sometime between 7 and 9 p.m., though I don't remember the exact time. At first, the wind felt steady and calm. Then it started to settle. It didn't stop completely, you could still feel it lightly against your skin, but something changed. A small gust of cold air brushed over me, colder than it should have been for a summer night. And then everything went silent. We had a small chihuahua at the time who would bark at anything in our yard, whether it was during the day or at night. But in that moment, there was nothing. No insects, no wind in the trees, no distant sounds. Not even our dog made a noise. It was just silent. Out of nowhere, on my left side, I saw something running on all 4s. It was pale gray, almost ashy, with black dirt-like marks along its body. You could see its skeleton through its skin. It was larger than what you would consider a normal human. Its limbs were longer than they should have been, malformed and bending in unnatural directions. I was sitting across from the middle tree in our front yard, and it ran past it. I could only see it out of the corner of my eye at first through the side of my iPad, but I turned out of curiosity or something else, and it stopped. I froze. I remember its elongated face, its black hollowed-out eyes, and the 2 thin strands of hair on its head. Its hands or paws were bony and claw-like. For a moment, neither it nor I moved. Then I turned to look at our dog. When I looked back, it was gone. After that night, I never felt any sort of dark energy around me. But sometimes, when I was told to go outside at night to get something from our trucks or take the trash out, I felt like something was watching me. Not in a malevolent way, I never felt like I was going to be attacked. It just felt present. The energy felt heavy and dark, but distant. I would feel like something was following me in the shadows, even though I never saw anything again. To this day, I still don't know what it was or what it could have been. I've always wondered if anyone else in this area or nearby has experienced something similar, or if they have their own stories related to this. This story was submitted anonymously, but thank you so much for submitting this if you're watching. I would say that the cryptid that probably best matches this description would be a rake, but I'm not 100% sure what this could be. Especially since you said that there was no malevolent energy, you felt like this thing was watching you, but it wasn't evil, it didn't feel like it would attack you. But as they said, if you are around New Mexico or in nearby areas and you have experienced something similar, please comment because I'm interested in hearing your story. As always, if you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can, and I will see you in the next one.
What if you were stalked by someone since you were 8 years old, but all that they did was whistle at you? Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepypasta. Guys, I'm not joking, this one seriously messed me up. And it has video evidence. Let's get into today's story. I have been waiting a long time to tell Reddit the full story of the Whistler. This story requires many details, but it is unexplainable, creepy, and 100% true. When I was about 8 years old, I was taking my dog for a walk through the neighborhood with my mom. It was maybe 11 p.m. We live next to a swamp and or woods area on the edge of our neighborhood in Lansing, Michigan. I remember it being very silent and slightly windy. From down in the swamp, we heard somebody whistling at us. It sounded sort of like a bird, but each whistle was different enough where the lack of consistency made it human-like. The whistle sounded higher than lower. I can't really describe it. My mom had a concerned, slightly terrified look on her face and grabbed my hand and said we should go inside quickly. I didn't understand because I was too young, but seeing my mom freaked out made me freak out too. After a while though, I kind of forgot about it. 2 years later, I was taking my dog out again late at night. There's a large bush that could easily obscure a person behind it just next to the front door. As I was finishing the walk, the whistling noise started again. Same pitches, same inconsistent human-like tones. As soon as I heard it, a chill went down my spine as I remembered exactly the feeling of seeing my mom, terrified, looking down into the swamp at something I couldn't see. Maybe she couldn't either. I ran inside as fast as possible. Years went by and I thought about it less and less. I told only a handful of people and eventually it slipped from my mind. Fast forward to last summer. I'm 24, started dating my girl Sarah. We moved out to South Dakota for work. For Independence Day, we decided to go to Pierre, South Dakota and watch the fireworks along the bank of the Missouri River. There was a free camping spot behind a hospital where you could pitch your tent, hang out, and see the fireworks up the river. We were near the end of the campground and there were very few people around us. As it was getting dark, the fireworks began. They were pretty far away, so the illumination they brought was very little. Thus, we had to sit right at the edge of the river to be able to see them. A huge thunderhead was moving in, and a storm was imminent, so the air seemed electric and the wind was picking up. The atmosphere was eerie, to say the least. The police boats herded all the other boats off the river and had left our area to do that elsewhere. Most of the other campers walked up the river to have a better view of the fireworks, but Sarah and I stayed back and were drinking PBR tall boys and kicking it. Suddenly, we heard the sound of a paddle methodically dipping into the water. We saw a figure steering a canoe about 20 meters offshore. Sarah decided to go get more beers from the car, leaving me alone to stare at this mystery person. And then, of course, they whistled at me. Not the thunder being a paid actor. Okay, anyways. My entire body was frozen and covered in goosebumps. My eyes are watering. It was the exact same Whistler from my childhood, more than a decade earlier. I looked at the figure, but it was much too dark to discern who it could be. They were wearing a hat. When they were perpendicular to the shore from me, they stopped paddling, turned the canoe to face directly at me, and whistled right at me. I was so frightened I stood up and shouted at them, "Who are you?" They didn't say anything. They just whistled a couple more times, turned the canoe 180 degrees, and paddled out of sight. I'm a videographer, so I already had my camera by my side and was taking videos of the fireworks. As the canoe was almost out of sight, I grabbed my camera and got a shot of them whistling as they went away. I was convinced we both would be murdered that night. How did this whistling person follow me after 14 years, all the way to South Dakota? Was it a coincidence? Why was it the same whistling noise? Who was that person and where did they go? So many questions still unanswered. Yeah, why were they on the water if it was storming like that? Like in a canoe? To this day, I'm more afraid of being outside in the dark where I might hear that whistling again. I'm open to any explanations. Okay guys, we're gonna watch this video. It's so creepy.
Are you whistling? Is it you? Stop it.
Just wait, he's gonna like zoom in. There's something like so uncanny about it.
What would you do if you were cleaning a large house alone and the owners tell you that there's one room that you don't need to clean, and every time you pass this room, you see something? Today's story is about a woman who was a housekeeper, and she says that the worst thing about that room was not the room itself, but what kept appearing in the doorway whenever she would pass by. I used to clean houses for a living, and most of the time it was just normal rich people messes. Expensive kitchens, too many bathrooms, dog hair everywhere, nothing worth telling stories about. This happened in one house I worked in for maybe 5 months, and it is the only place I ever quit without notice. The house belonged to a couple in their 50s, very formal, very private. They had a big old place, not a mansion exactly, but enough that it took me most of the day to do it properly. They had one rule from the start: I did not need to clean the mother's room. The husband's mother lived there too, upstairs in the back bedroom. He told me she was bedridden and had a private nurse some days, and on the days I cleaned, I could skip that room entirely. He said his mother did not like strangers and the family preferred to handle that part themselves. Fine by me. That kind of thing wasn't unusual. The first time I noticed something strange was maybe my second week there. I was vacuuming the upstairs hall, and as I passed her room, I saw her standing in the doorway. That by itself made me jump because I had been told she was bedridden. She was an older woman, very thin, white hair hanging flat, in a long pale nightgown. She was just standing there, looking at me. I smiled automatically and said, "Good morning." She didn't answer. Then the homeowner's husband came up the stairs behind me carrying towels, and I turned to say something to him, just something along the lines of, that his mom was up. But when I looked back, the doorway was empty. He went right past the room and didn't seem to notice anything. I asked casually if his mother was feeling better, and he stopped and looked at me oddly and said, "She hasn't gotten out of bed in months." I laughed because I thought maybe he was joking. He wasn't. After that, I tried not to look directly at the room when I went by, but it got harder because things kept happening around that doorway. Some days the door would be almost shut, even though I passed it open earlier. Other days I would hear someone talking inside, but never a full conversation. More like one low voice and then long pauses. I told myself maybe the nurse was there. Then one Wednesday I heard the same low voice from the room, walked by a minute later, and the whole upstairs was empty except for me. The thing that started really to get to me was the smell. Not every time, but just sometimes. I'd be cleaning the hall bathroom or dusting the table at the top of the stairs, and all at once the air outside the bedroom would smell foul. Not like sickness exactly, more like old water and something spoiled underneath it. The smell would be there for maybe 30 seconds and then just gone. One afternoon I was changing sheets in the guest room across the hall and heard the mother laughing. Not loud, just a little laugh. It sounded wrong for some reason. Not because old women can't laugh, just because it sounded private, like she was responding to something said right beside her. I looked out into the hall and could see part of her doorway from where I stood. There was a shadow moving on the wall inside that room. Not from the hall light, not from me. It was moving across the far wall in a way that looked like somebody pacing inside, but too close to the bed to make sense. I left that floor and did the downstairs kitchen until I felt calm enough to go back. The homeowners never acted like anything was odd. That was part of what made it worse. They were stiff people to begin with, and the mother was never mentioned much, just little updates like she had a hard night or the nurse came early. I started wondering if maybe everybody in that house had just learned not to talk about whatever was happening. Then one day I saw her again. This time she wasn't in the doorway. She was in the bed, where she was supposed to be. The door was open wider than usual because the nurse had apparently been there earlier. I wasn't looking in on purpose. I just glanced while carrying a basket past. She was propped up on pillows, very still, staring at the ceiling. What scared me was not her. It was the corner behind the bed. There was someone else standing there, and I know what I saw. Not clearly enough to tell you a face, but there was a figure in that corner, taller than the bed, too dark against the wallpaper, and I stopped, walking without meaning to, and looked straight into the room. The old woman's eyes shifted. Very slowly, without turning her head, she looked right at me. And from the corner, something whispered, "Don't." I dropped the basket, and by the time I bent to grab it, the homeowner's wife was at the stairs asking if everything was all right. I said yes, because I didn't know what else to say. She looked at me for a second, and then at my mother-in-law's room, then back at me. She didn't ask anything else, and after that I started rushing the upstairs cleaning as fast as I could. I wanted to be in and out before lunch. I didn't wear headphones anymore, and I didn't hum to myself. I wanted to hear everything and stay alert. The scariest day was the last one. I was polishing the upstairs hallway table when I heard the old woman speaking clearly for the first time, not muttering or laughing or speaking this time. She said, "No, not her." I froze, and then another voice answered. Not loud, but it was louder than hers. I could not make out the exact words, but I heard enough to know it was not her voice, and it was not coming from the hallway. It was inside the room with her. I started backing towards the stairs, and that's when the bedroom door opened a little wider on its own. I know people say that and it sounds fake. I don't care. It did open wider. And I could see the mother sitting up in bed now, a lot straighter than I had ever seen her, and even though I had been told more than once she could barely move by herself, she was looking towards the foot of the bed, not at me. And at the foot of the bed there was something crouched on the floor. I only saw a part of it. One arm, or maybe one shoulder, the shape of a head bent too low. It looked like it was kneeling there with its back to the door. Then the mother looked at me and smiled. Not a sweet old lady smile, not a confused smile. It was the kind of smile people make when they know something you don't. And without taking her eyes off me, she said, "You keep walking by when it's hungry." I left my supplies there and I went downstairs. The wife met me in the foyer, and before I even said anything, she held out my cash for the day. That scared me too, honestly, because it felt like she already knew I was done. I took the money, got in the car, and never came back. I ignored her call the next week, and when she texted asking if I was still planning to clean on Thursday, I blocked her number. I still think about that room more than I want to. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.
I don't know why you guys go out to the woods. I don't know why people go out to the woods. I have seen enough horror stories that I am not going out into the woods. I recently found your Oregon Spooky Stories playlist on TikTok, and I'd like to submit one of mine that I have. This story takes place in a couple different locations, but same type of entity. I've lived in Roseburg my entire life. Love the town, however, there are some dark things in the woods there. I have always been sensitive to spirits and other entities my entire life. Now this story takes place in 2021. I was roughly 17 or 18 at the time. Myself and a couple of friends went up to the mountains, specifically the Caligans. Now it was just a fun night, you know, as teenagers have. However, me and my friends kept getting this weird vibe. About an hour goes by after we started getting that vibe when my friend said she saw something kind of like a deer. She described it as a massive deer with bloody antlers and orange eyes. Now my original thought was, okay, whatever, you're drunk. But that changed fast as her boyfriend came back from going to the restroom and he saw the same thing but said the air smelled rotten. Now, I'm not a very skeptical guy, but I definitely know our wildlife and forests. I say the deer was probably shedding its velvet, and the eyes probably looked orange because of our bonfire. The eye shine and the air probably smelled rotten because of a dead animal. They both disagreed. Now, there were 6 of us up there, and only 4 of us saw it. I can't speak for the other 2, as they left before they shared their experience. Eventually, we all left, and as we drove down the mountain on the road, we see the deer. My friend, she points to it and says, "That's what I saw, dude." And I wish it was just my imaginations, but those eyes were indeed bright orange. Cut to about a few hours later, my friends dropped me off near my home in Green. So I start walking back to my house, and I could swear on a Bible that the air smelled rotten the entire way home. To be honest, I don't know what we saw, nor do I want to, but that was weird. My friends and I don't talk about it at all. I know it scared my friend's boyfriend bad enough he hasn't been hunting since, which he used to be an avid hunter. I still go up there to the mountains where that thing was and haven't seen it since, but I have a lot more stories from over the years. OP, thank you so much for sending this in. I also love that you found my Oregon playlist. That is pretty old. It's from when I really first started this account. Majority of my playlists are, now I just have a story time playlist so people can just watch it on, the automatic playlist where it just plays afterwards. You know what I'm trying to say? Because apparently I can't speak. Anyways, I cannot imagine being in this position. I, first of all, like I said, would not be in the woods. I would not be going out to the woods. I am not a very let's go out and do something person. I'm a very let's sit at home and cuddle my cat like I'm about to grab right now. So the fact that you were even out in the woods in the first place is a no-go for me. Oh, don't mind him. He has a skin condition, and we're working on meds to figure out how to fix what's happening here, but it's a work in progress, okay? I feel like seeing any type of animal in a way that you're not used to seeing them is scary in and of itself, but this seems demonic, and deers, especially things with antlers, are usually found in occult processy, if that makes sense. So this definitely could be something very paranormal, very shapeshiftery. It's giving bad vibes, and I would have definitely been like, no, actually, we need to leave. We need to be running right now, okay? I don't want to be here. I would not have been there. I do not let friends peer pressure me. Let me just put that out there. But it sounds like you guys are very outdoorsy people, that this is like a common thing that you guys would do. You see how itchy he is? It's so sad. So if it's like a common thing that you guys do, I mean, man, you would know more about it than I do, because this sounds demonic to me. I'm not here for it. You know what I mean? I would be fucking running for the hills, or out of them, I guess, in this case. So thank you so much, OP, for sending this in. I truly appreciate you. I will absolutely add this one to the Oregon playlist so everybody else can watch those. And I love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic day. Say goodbye, Crumb. Say goodbye, handsome man. Can you say goodbye? Yeah, we're gonna figure it out. It's just gonna take some time. I've only had him for about 2 months, and he is on medication, but we're doing an anti-anxiety, so hopefully that helps. And I think I'm gonna bring him to a different vet to get a second opinion on how we should treat him, because he does self-mutilate, unfortunately, just because his skin is so itchy, and I think he's used to it because he was a stray and he's 3 years old. So we'll figure it out, and I'll give you guys updates. But I love you guys, and I hope you have a great night.
Story time. About 7 or 8 years ago, the whole family was downstairs watching a movie, but I had laundry to do. So I went upstairs to do the laundry. Our laundry was that kind that was just these, like, the machines were right behind these closed doors, like a closet. So when you close the doors, they're flush with the front of the machines. And when you open the doors, it kind of blocked off each side of the hallway. To the left would be the stairs to go back downstairs, the door to the master bedroom, and then 2 bedroom doors to 2 of the bedrooms. There's another room on the other side of that hallway. Now, understand that the kids, 2 of the younger kids, were going through a thing at that time where they were having night terrors. They were saying they were seeing things and feeling things, and it was just all very uncomfortable. So I'm over there doing the laundry. I'm switching clothes from one machine to the other, and I hear something. So I kind of pull the door closed a little bit to see past it, over there by the stairs on that side. And I see a little girl who runs from my bedroom into the bedroom of one of the kids that are having these experiences. And she's just giggling, running. She was not one of my children. So I didn't scream. It was more of, one of those like startle, like, oh my God kind of gasps. The thing is, it's not like I saw her from the corner of my eyes. I watched this child run across my hallway. I tracked her movement with my eyeballs. Followed her into the room. She wasn't there. The child didn't exist. So I shouted after Josh. I didn't go downstairs. I just kind of stood there. And I was like, Josh, there is a kid. I just saw a kid just run from our room into this other room. And Josh is a man and has one of those types of men who doesn't have the most elaborate or excitable reactions to things like that. At least not, it wasn't enough for what I was going through at the moment. And by then we had already had all sorts of experiences. We understood that this is our life. It was my life before him, it was his life before me, and now we're living that life together. I didn't feel that this child had any malicious intent towards me, but knowing what the kids were going through at the time, I knew that she had malicious intent towards them. So I did cleanse the house. I'm not going to use the other word because I got in trouble and yelled at a lot by using that word. Cleansed the house, and I don't remember if this all happened before or after this other experience. It ultimately told me and Josh what we were dealing with. Cue the story of the twisted children.
Let's read some more Glitch in the Matrix stories. We have a breakfast laid on at work every morning. Just a simple buffet of eggs, bacon, what have you. Nothing huge, and it's really only to feed about a dozen people or so. I am usually one of the first guys from my team to get to work, and the kitchen was deserted as usual. I walked into the little kitchen. There was a ceramic egg tray thing with 12 eggs in it, like the bottom half of an egg carton with a socket for each egg. All spaces were filled with warm, freshly boiled eggs. I take one, walk over to the garbage bin, shuck the shell, then I walk back over to the food and stop dead. There are 12 eggs in the tray again. No one entered the room while I was peeling the thing. I touched the mystery egg, and it was the same temp as the other eggs around it. Not a big thing, nothing major, but something very strange. Given one does not get presented with strange eggs from a parallel universe every day, I ate it. I would probably eat it too. At 12 years of age, my mom let me stay in the truck as she went grocery shopping. As I wait, I see an old guy walking towards the truck with an indescribable look towards me, as if I knew too much. He stops 5 feet from the truck, looks at me for a couple seconds, and heads back the exact way he came. It was rather traumatic for some reason, and very confusing at that age. 5 to 6 years later, my dad was showing me home videos of us at Yellowstone. At Old Faithful, I noticed that same guy, same look, same clothes, peering at us on camera, and at me through the TV. I'm freaked out just telling this. What on earth? Staring at you through the TV? That is not a human. My dad had this little toy monkey that he used to call his favorite child and tease me and my siblings with it. Not in a bad way, but it was really frustrating to us, and we spent hours trying to steal it from him. Well, anyways, one day we finally got it and threw it into the garbage after drawing on it and mangling it for a little bit. My dad laughed and searched for it for a bit, but basically figured we had thrown it out and gave up after a week or so. Anyways, a few years later, when I was about 17, I'm walking down the street in Toronto. I don't live in Toronto, was just visiting friends, and I see this little orange object on the side of the road. When I walk over to it, I pick it up and see that it is the exact same monkey. It even had the black Sharpie lines on it from when we drew all over it. I honestly cannot even come up with the chances of that happening, especially considering our garbage is sent to a local dump and is nowhere near Toronto. I used to work in a building that had 3 levels of sub-basements, with the piece of lab equipment I typically worked on in the lowest basement. I had the only key. There was a weird phone in there, and I did work late some nights, but not this night. I was sleeping alone in my apartment when I woke up to a call on my cell phone from my girlfriend at 3 a.m. She was in hysterics and asking why I scared her. Apparently, she received a call from that basement phone just a minute earlier, with someone who sounded like me, slowly repeating her name until crackling and fading out. My apartment was 10 miles away from work. I thought she was lying, but I saw the 3 a.m. call from the basement phone logged on her cell myself. Still freaks me the fuck out. My friend used to put up a reoccurring away message back in the day when everybody had AIM. She was a Beatles superfan and put up a sentiment from John and Yoko, Acorns for Peace. Well, one day I was walking around my college campus thinking about it, but failing to remember the full quote. In my mind, I kept thinking, something for peace, something for peace. What the hell is that away message? Right then, some chick on a cell phone walks by me and screams out, Acorns! I realize this is not super freaky, but it made my day at the time. It's not every day someone screams out acorns in your vicinity at the exact right time. Maybe it was the spirits of the Beatles helping you out. Let us know in the comments if you have ever experienced a glitch in the Matrix.
Because I love to visit haunted and spooky places, this story freaked me out. I was on a subreddit, and I will put everything in the description below, but pretty much the writer says that about a year ago, the writer, the sister, and a couple of friends were visiting this haunted hotel. And the only reason why they wanted to go visit is because recently this abandoned hotel was on the news. And the writer says that they actually visited this place many times because it was newly abandoned. There were still some TVs hanging on the walls, there was still beds that were made, so it was kind of clean. Now they love to ghost hunt, and one of the friends ended up taking a lot of ghost hunting equipment. Voice boxes, EMF readers, you name it. So as they're roaming this entire hotel, a specific room kind of catches their attention. They are there, they're sitting down, they're setting up all the equipment, and they start talking. They start asking questions, and the usual static is picked up. Nothing crazy, nothing insane. The casual few words every now and then. They're getting ready to wrap it up, and they're kind of over it. They're like, maybe nothing ever happened here. Again, this hotel was on the news. Why? A few years before it was closed, a man had unalived his girlfriend in one of these hotel rooms. She was unfortunately, and he actually tried to cover it up before fleeing, and then the cops ended up finding him. So yes, there was a death that happened on the property. So they were trying to make contact with this woman, and again, nothing crazy out of this world was happening. Then they're kind of over it. They're getting ready to pack up, and out of nowhere, they hear the most outrageous and crazy, scary sounding, loud scream. And the writer says that they all gasped. They were literally like, now again, they had already walked the entire property. There was no one on the property but them. They all kind of split up into partners. They're looking around the whole property. There's no one around, no one outside, no one inside. So they literally do not know who or what made that scream. Now, stories like these make you think, because was it a ghost? Was it an actual person? And if it was an actual person, where were they? Why was it a woman that screamed? Kind of makes you think, is this place haunted? Or is it just coincidence? What do you think? If you guys are into spooky stories, anything paranormal, anything haunted, anything true crime, please make sure you follow. If you guys have a story that you'd like for me to read, please make sure that you send it via DM or email, because I'd love to read them, and I will see you guys in the next spooky story. Bye!
A demon caused me to have a miscarriage, but nobody believes me. Story time. This was sent in by Sabrina. So Sabrina was 25. She had just married her high school sweetheart. They were 6 months pregnant, and she had just started a new job at a nursing home. Her training goes really well, so she starts working the third hall all by herself. One day she comes into work and realizes the last room on the end of her hallway now has a new resident. Sabrina goes into that room to introduce herself, and that's where she sees this very tall, lanky, narrow-faced woman sitting on the bed. She says, "Hey, my name's Sabrina. I'll be your nurse. What's your name?" But the woman doesn't answer back. All that night, Sabrina goes in and out of that room trying her best to get to know this woman, but this woman will not talk to her. Sabrina goes back in that room one more time to check on this woman. Sabrina said, "Well, I hope you have a good morning. I'll see you later on tonight." And right when she went to walk out, that was when this woman finally spoke. The woman said, "You brought me a boy." Sabrina said, "Excuse me?" She said, "The boy in your belly." Sabrina said, "Wait, how did you know I was having a boy?" The woman said, "I can just tell." So Sabrina started laughing and said, "Oh, really? How can you tell the gender of my baby just by looking at me?" And the woman said, "I can't tell just by looking at you. I can smell him." That comment scared the hell out of Sabrina. she snatched a blood pressure cuff off the woman's arm and hauled ass out the room. So Sabrina goes home and she tells her husband all about this weird exchange with this woman, and he's like, I get it, you creeped out, but you're gonna have weird experiences like this with that kind of job. The next night, Sabrina goes back to work. She walks in, checks on all her residents, and when she gets to the end of the hallway, she sees that same old woman sitting on the bed staring at TV. And she says, do you need anything to eat or drink, or you need covers? Anything at all? And the woman says, yeah, I could use some food. So Sabrina gets her chart out and she says, we have hamburger steak, mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, what would you like? The old woman said, I told you, I want that baby. I'm gonna eat your baby soul. Sabrina said, listen, I'm trying to be nice here. I don't want no problems between me and you, but you can't have my baby. This is my first child with the love of my life. The old woman didn't crack a smile. She looked at Sabrina and said, now Sabrina, me and you both know this is not your first child. Sabrina said, excuse me? The woman said, you've had 3 miscarriages. This won't be your 4th. What do you think happened to those babies? Why do you keep losing babies? Do you think it's something you're doing? Maybe you're just not meant to be a mother, Sabrina. But now Sabrina's angry. She said, who told you that? Y'all have no right talking about my personal business. She clocks out, she gets on the elevator, and as she's coming down to the 2nd floor, the elevator starts to shake. Lights start to flicker, and this weird smell starts to permeate throughout the elevator. Of course, with her being pregnant, she can smell everything 10 times stronger, so she's like, oh my God, what is that? Well, finally, the elevator goes back to normal, and it goes down to the bottom floor where the parking garage is. That's when she hears it. It sounded like something was growling underneath every car that she walked by, and it got louder and louder the closer she got to her car. So she gets to her house, and when she's unlocking the door, she hears that growling again, except this time, it's behind her. Sabrina turns around, and there that old woman stood across the road in the neighbor's front yard. Sabrina thought, oh my God, this bitch has followed me home. She's stalking me. So she runs in the house and calls the police. The police come out, her husband gets up, but they can't find anyone out there. And she tells her husband what this woman had said to her that night, and he said, oh, well, that's where all this is stemming from. Look, honey, I think you're stressed out. You're dealing with a lot. It's the first pregnancy that we had that's even got this far. That woman said something real freaky, and that's what's got you so upset. It's okay. Sabrina said she's gonna take our baby. Her husband said, honey, you've got to learn how to let what people say roll off your back. The old woman's crazy. You got the police out here looking for a ghost? Come on, let's go to bed. So now Sabrina's like, well, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I'm seeing shit because I'm pregnant. This woman's creeping me out. I just need to calm down. I'm gonna go into work tomorrow, and I'm not gonna let what that woman says affect me. Sabrina starts her shift. She walks down the hallway to that woman's room, walks in, checks her sheets, her vitals, gets her food, and before she starts to leave, the old woman says, did you have an interesting night last night? Did you get scared on the way home? Sabrina said, look, let's just calm down. Let's talk this out. What is your issue with me? And the old woman said, I told you, I just want your baby. And I will get that baby one way or the other. Sabrina said, you know what? I've had just about enough of your shit. You're not getting my damn baby. Now you calm your ass down, or I'll have the suits come in here and sedate your ass. Now get in that bed and go to sleep. I don't want to hear nothing else about my baby. So right then, Sabrina decides, when I come in tomorrow, I'm going to talk to my boss, and I'm either going to get her moved, or I'm going to be moved to another floor because I can't deal with her anymore. But on 2 a.m., Sabrina's sitting at her desk like this, bored to death, and barely can keep her eyes open dozing off when she sees this black shadowy figure pass by the desk. Sabrina jolts awake like, what the hell was that? Somebody up? So she gets up and starts checking all the residents' rooms. Everybody's in their room, even the woman at the end of the hallway. Sabrina's like, that's weird. Okay, I'm just seeing shit. So Sabrina's sitting at her desk doing her work when she feels this weird itchy feeling at her side. She keeps scratching it here and there like, damn, what is that? After about an hour of sitting at her desk, her stomach is now cramping, and she's actually in pain. She slides her chair back, and that's where she sees this old woman is crouched down, hiding underneath her desk, holding a stick pin, sticking it into her stomach. Sabrina pushed back from the desk so hard that she flipped backwards, and when she jumped up, the old woman was not there. So she took off running down to her room, and that's where she found the woman laying in her bed. Sabrina said, give it here. I know you got a pin. Give it to me right now. And the woman was like, what are you talking about? I was asleep. Sabrina said, I know what the hell I saw. Where's the stick pin, and what were you doing to my baby? The woman laughs and says, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Something's wrong with you. Maybe you're crazy. Sabrina thought, no, I'm done with this. So she turned around and started to run out the room, and that was when all the lights down the hallway went out. She gets halfway down the hallway but can't see nothing, and ends up tripping and falling over something and hits her head on the floor. She wakes up on an ambulance heading to the hospital, and when she tried to get up, they said, no, stay still, you're bleeding. Doctors tell her they can't find the baby's heartbeat. Trigger warning. She said when they removed her baby, the doctor said her baby had been dead for days. He was deteriorating inside of her. The doctors checked everything and cannot figure out what happened to her baby. To this day, I believe that was a demon, and that demon killed my baby. But what makes me believe it even more is the fact that after I quit my job, I went back to get my last paycheck, and my coworkers told me that old woman died the same night that I fell and went to the hospital. All I can think about is what happened. What did that demon do to my baby? But my husband says I'm crazy. No demon stole our baby. Nobody will listen to me. Nobody believes me. I'm at my wit's end and just don't know what to do anymore. I don't even want to try again. I'm just done.
This girl sent me an email saying that she had a sleep paralysis incident where she was physically harmed by a sleep demon. Stories like this that make me believe truly that sleep paralysis is actually something that is really happening. For context, she used to share a bedroom with her father, and her two brothers shared a room, and that room was right next to her and her father. So one day she's getting ready for bed. She goes to bed. bed, she falls asleep like everybody else does in the house. And her bed was a bunk bed, except for it was one of those bunk beds that doesn't have a bottom bed. Her father's bed was like a double bed, so like a twin bed, and it was underneath her bed. It was like a metal bed. It was sort of like a cabin bed, she said, if you can picture that. So she falls asleep that night and she wakes up in the middle of the night and she realizes that she cannot move. She said that this was a little bit different though than sleep paralysis she felt. She did feel like she was having sleep paralysis, but she felt wide awake. She didn't feel foggy or anything like you do in sleep paralysis. No, she felt alert. She remembers looking around the room and she can hear her dad snoring, and his TV is playing in the background and she can hear all this noise. So at this point she tries to get up. She wants to move and she realizes I really can't move. Like, I'm in sleep paralysis, but she doesn't really understand it because she's not really getting why she feels so wide awake. So she's just laying there. She's staring at the wall and she's staring at her bed rail. And then she hears this noise, and it's like this creaking noise. And then she moves her eyes over to the door and she realizes that her door is slowly opening. And suddenly she sees this woman walk into her room, and this woman is like shaking like this. She said that the woman looked terrifying. The woman was incredibly tall, like as tall as her bed, and her bed was really high off of the ground, and she also had really long black hair. She said that her hair was covering her face, but it wasn't fully covering her face. She could still see one of her eyes, and she could see her teeth, and she said that she had so many teeth. She said that she had this very white, dirty dress on, and that her skin was incredibly pale. She's just standing there watching her as this woman is just shaking and walking like closer and closer and closer to her bed as she's just shaking. She then sees her slowly climb up the ladder. She's now so close to her. She's like right at her feet. She said at this point that she was so terrified that her heart was pounding so hard that it was literally hurting her chest. She felt her breathing speed up, but she couldn't do anything. She was just stuck there staring at this woman at the end of her bed by her feet. So the woman is just at her feet staring at her with her one eye, and she just picks up her foot like this, picks up her entire leg actually, and she bites down on her foot. And she bit hard. And after she bites her foot, she lets go and she looks directly at Mimi, makes eye contact with her, and just starts smiling. And there's like blood coming out of Mimi's foot. At this point, Mimi is just crying and she wants to scream for her dad, but she can't scream for her dad because she can't move her entire body, let alone speak. She said at some point she must have drifted off and fell asleep, or something must have happened where the woman went away. She doesn't really remember what happened, but she does remember that eventually the woman went away. The next morning she gets up and she's rattled, right? But she thinks that this is sleep paralysis. Well, just out of kind of instinct, she picks up her foot and she looks at it, and there's a bite mark on her foot, right where she bit her. She said that it wasn't bleeding or anything, but it was a visible bite mark. So she tells her dad immediately because she's absolutely terrified, but her dad is not listening to her at all. And as she's telling her dad this, her little brother overhears her. And her little brother tells her that that night he had heard something above his bunk bed, but that he didn't think anything about it because he thought it was just his older brother that was sleeping above him. So what do you guys think about that story? See, this is what makes me think that sleep paralysis is in fact paranormal. Yes, I know it is a sleep condition. I do know that. And I know how it works, right? Because I've gotten it so many times in my life that I've done a ton of research on it. But it doesn't make sense that my email is flooded with stories that are about sleep paralysis. Something will happen to somebody in their sleep paralysis, and then they will wake up and it will still be there the next day. Doors will be open, or things will be moved in their room, or there will be like marks on the wall from something that happened, like if something was thrown across the room in their sleep paralysis, and then getting bit and waking up. I know that your mind is a very powerful thing. I do know that, but that's pretty damn powerful for you to kind of visualize someone biting you and then waking up the next morning and then your body creating a bite mark. I hated how she just smiled at her afterwards. And I also hated how she was shaking. Oh my God. I also got another story that was kind of similar to this one, except for the girl wasn't hurt, but it was terrifying. I'm going to tell that one soon. It was I don't like stories about like ladies that look like they have long black hair. I have a theory that we see in our sleep paralysis and our dreams, like even not in our dreams, like in the real life when we have paranormal experiences, that we see tall things, we see women with long black hair, and we see things that are really skinny. And I think that it's because that's not normal to our brains, and that evil knows what we don't like and what scares human beings. And so that's what it portrays to us. That's my theory, because I get so many stories of entities looking exactly the same as like other stories without those people knowing each other. Obviously, I get stories from all around the world. So it's just weird to me. But what do you guys think this was? Do you think that this was sleep paralysis? Do you think it was her mind? What do you think it was? And what do you think this thing was that was biting her? leave it in the comments. Comments, thoughts, suggestions, anything you have to say, drop it in the comments, but please be respectful. I do delete comments that are rude, by the way, you guys, so it doesn't make sense to leave them, because if you're rude to the people who are submitting the story, I'm going to delete your comment. There's no reason for you to be rude to a stranger. Why are you doing it? Like, you have to look within yourself and ask yourself, why do I have to be rude to strangers on the internet? I don't know. It's also pointless because, again, I delete that. I have self-tanner on my hands. I totally forgot to wash it off. Okay, now I'm going to do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. 7-8 Jess 2. Thank you so much for what you said. You said that I was a wonderful storyteller. You also said that you made a post, and I didn't really understand that because I looked for a post. I didn't know if you meant that I made a post or that you made a post, but either way, I didn't see a post from you. So if you did make a post, then definitely tag it in the comments below because I would like to see it. But if you didn't, then maybe I misunderstood you. Anyways, thank you so much for the comment that you left. That means so much to me. You have no idea. I appreciate you being here so much. I appreciate you being a part of my community. I appreciate you being kind and leaving kind comments and pushing my videos out. It means the world to me. I hope that you stay here forever, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of your comments. I love you, girl. AK456274. Okay, that's not your username. That's your actual nickname, but your username is kind of long and it has a bunch of numbers in it. They might even be the same, but thank you. I will tag you so you'll know who I'm talking about. I really appreciate you. You just basically said I'm amazing, and I really appreciated that comment so much. It was just so simple and nice, and I loved those comments. Like, when I read your comments, you guys, you really make me just feel better. I had the worst day today. The worst day. If I told you guys what happened, I literally had a panic attack. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go read my comment section on my Spooky Stories page because that will make me feel so much better. And it did. And it's people like you that make me feel that way. So thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. You have no idea. Thank you for being kind. Thank you for being a part of my community. Thank you for watching my stories and supporting me and leaving comments and pushing my videos out. It really does mean so much to me, and I'm so glad that you're here, and I love you, girl. Or boy. I'm not sure if you're a girl or a boy because I didn't see a picture. With that being said, my name is Kaisa, and I tell your true paranormal experiences on here every single night. So if you're into that, hit that follow button, and I just need you to do 3 things for me. What are those? Keep sending me your scary stories. Have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
I have a scary story for you today that comes to us from someone who lives on a rural property. And at the time that this story takes place, she said that she was actually staying in the home by herself because her husband was traveling for work. But she wasn't alone. She did have her 2 dogs with her. I also realized when I started recording this video that I never finished my makeup this morning. There were other things that I wanted to do, and I just walked away. I didn't blend. I didn't put mascara on, nothing. Today is a severely ADHD day, so this is not intentional. Anyway, this person who we're just going to call Carmen, she said that she lived rural. She didn't live on a farm. They did have some property. She said about 3 acres. They lived in a smaller house, a smaller cabin type house. There were woods that did line the back of their property. They had a backyard that was fenced in. She said it wasn't a privacy fence. It was basically like one of those fences, like a horse fence. But then they had put wire up along that fence to make sure that nothing could really get in or get out. Her husband did travel for work, so she was at the house often by herself. She said that she never felt anything threatening, any sense of impending doom. She always felt very safe where she was. Even though where she lived was rural, she said she did have neighbors that were not too far down the road. So she never felt completely secluded, and she also had her 2 big dogs that always stayed with her when her husband traveled. The day that this story takes place, Carmen said that she had stayed home the entire day. She didn't go anywhere. She didn't see anyone because she actually really wasn't feeling well. She told me that normally before bed at about 9:30, she would let her dogs out into their fenced-in backyard to use the bathroom. However, this night she decides, I'm going to go to bed early. I'm going to let them out at about 8:45, and then I'm just going to go on ahead and head to bed because I'm really not feeling well. She opens the door that goes to the backyard, and immediately her 2 big dogs, they start growling and barking, and they immediately take off and beeline it for the corner of the fence in her backyard. Carmen said at this point she is ready for bed. She has plugged her phone in on her nightstand. She is in her jammies. She really doesn't want to deal with this right now. She's thinking there's just an animal out there in the woods along the fence line, and my dogs are reacting to that. So they do keep a flashlight by the back door. So Carmen grabs that flashlight, she flicks it on, and she starts shining it around the yard. She doesn't see anything, but her dogs will not leave this corner of the fence. They're just standing there barking, snarling, growling. She said this is really not like them. They do not do this. So she's thinking, there's an animal, it must be hurt, it must be stuck, something is wrong. So she has her little slippers on, she walks outside in her little jammy jams, and as she gets closer to the corner of this fence, she says that she can see something that looks like a black trash bag laying on the outside of her fence, just where the woods kind of meet her property line. She said it was not far, maybe like 3 feet. So she sees this and she's thinking, okay, my dogs are seeing this. It looks like maybe somebody dumped some trash. It's not normal. I don't really know how that got there, but that's weird. But this is what my dogs are reacting to. So she kind of walks out there to tell them that it's okay. And she is still shining her flashlight on this trash bag so that she can show her dogs, like, look, like it's just an inanimate object. Like it's completely fine. As she gets closer, she says that she realizes that this trash bag is actually moving. And as she gets even closer, she says, I realize this is not a trash bag because I see a man's hand. Carmen says that this does startle her. She's afraid. She realizes, oh, this is an actual person that is laying outside of my fence. That's very strange. But Carmen also said, I have the survival skills of a ripened avocado. She says she just stops where she is. She keeps shining her flashlight and she actually asks this person, hey, are you okay? If you are on the edge of your seat screaming at Carmen, me too. So it's fine. She recognizes this. She asks this person, hey, are you okay? And she says that this person slowly stands up. And she said it doesn't even look like a normal stand up. It's basically like he unfolds from this weird little pretzel that he was laying in, hoping that she wouldn't see him. Once he stands up, Carmen says she realizes that this man is perfectly fine. And she says that's when it hits her. Her dogs are still snarling and barking and very upset. And Carmen realizes I should probably be afraid. Now, Carmen has left her cell phone inside charging on the nightstand because remember, she was getting ready to go to bed. So she doesn't have her phone. But she knows that this guy doesn't know that she doesn't have her phone. All Carmen has right now is this flashlight and her 2 big dogs. This man is standing on the other side of the fence about 10 feet away from Carmen. She slowly starts to back up. She grabs her dog's collar and slowly starts to go back to the house. She said, I'm not turning my back on this guy. I just tell him, hey, I don't know what you're doing here, but you're trespassing. You need to leave. Man looks at her and says, no. Carmen says, okay, well then I'm going to call the cops. And he says, don't do that. Girl! This man starts to approach the fence, kind of hang his arms over the fence, and then her dogs start to go ballistic. She says her dogs are not trained in any sort of like protection or anything like that, but in that moment, she knows that her dogs would have protected her, would have hurt this person. So she says, I know it was a lie, but I end up telling this guy, my dogs are highly trained, and if I give them the cue, they will come after you. Do not come into this yard. So the guy does not go over the fence because these dogs are still going crazy. So she's slowly backing into the house. She does not turn her back on this man. She gets inside, gets both of her dogs inside, locks the doors that lead to the back, makes sure that the front is locked, with still keeping an eye on the back doors. Like I said, it was a small cabin type house, an open layout, so she could see all the entrances. She gets to the bedroom. She grabs her cell phone, immediately calls authorities. Authorities say, like, we're 15 minutes out. We'll be there in 15 minutes. But Carmen's neighbor is actually a local sheriff. So while she is on the phone with 911, she texts her neighbor and lets him know that someone is trespassing on her property and she feels threatened. He says it doesn't take 35 seconds and this man is pulling into her drive with his patrol car. Lights are on, sirens are going, hoping that he can just scare this guy off if he is trying to enter the home. So her neighbor, who's the sheriff, he jumps out of his car. He runs up to the house and he's like, where is he? And she tells him he was on the back corner of that fence. Carmen says that her neighbor immediately takes off, running towards that back corner of her property. He kind of stops at the corner of the fence, looks around, doesn't see anything, but kind of jerks his head towards the woods as if he hears something. So he immediately just takes off running into the trees. Carmen says that the responding officers to her call into 911 must have been traveling at light speed because they get there about 7 minutes later. They hop out of their car, they see the other sheriff car in the driveway, they're asking kind of what's going on, and she says, my neighbor just took off chasing something into the woods. So they then take off and follow into the woods. About 5 minutes later, the 4 of them come walking out of the tree line. So the 2 on-duty officers and her 1 neighbor who was off-duty have subdued this guy. He's cuffed, and they're just kind of walking him towards their patrol cars. And says she does notice that her neighbor who she had texted is carrying some type of a book bag. Carmen says she does not want to have any other interaction with this guy who was standing at the corner of her fence, so she's not going near the patrol cars, but 1 officer does stay with him. They have him in the back, and then her neighbor and the officer come up to her house to talk to her. Her neighbor tells her that in this book bag, they had found certain things that could inflict things, and also a notebook with notes about Carmen's schedule. Where she went, when she let her dogs out, when she normally went to bed, when her husband normally traveled. This guy who was on the outside of Carmen's fence had plans. He had apparently told the officers as well as Carmen's neighbor that the only reason that he did not follow through with whatever he had planned was because her schedule was off and her dogs. Carmen said that this is still very fresh. This guy is currently incarcerated. However, since he didn't actually do anything and they can't prove what his intent was, he will soon be out. Since this incident, Carmen says that her husband has requested to stop traveling for work, so he is no longer leaving her alone at the home because of what happened. They also have put up a security system as well as security cameras and fenced in their entire property line, even into the woods. She says she knows that this probably won't deter him if he does want to come back as far as the fencing, but it gives her peace of mind. They also on this fence have mounted cameras so they can see if anyone does come onto their property. Carmen says it's a very unfortunate incident because in a place that she had always felt safe, she no longer felt safe. She said it seemed like a safe area. We were rural. We weren't, around a bunch of people who could find you or see you, and we trust all of our neighbors, and it has always seemed like a safe place, but she says now that security is completely shattered. In telling this story, Carmen hopes that she can bring awareness to other women to always be aware of your surroundings. Even if you are somewhere that you think that you are safe, always have your cell phone on you, always have some sort of protection on hand, even if it's your own backyard, especially if you are alone and by yourself. I'm not really sure how the legal system works or operates in situations like this. I don't know what this man could have or would have been charged with. I'm not sure, and Carmen did not elaborate. She just let us know that he is incarcerated and did get time for this. However, I don't know what his exact charges were. There are so many stories that I can tell you, and when I tell them, I don't feel fear from them. I more so feel fascination and a want to understand. However, when it comes to sharing stories like this, these are the ones that scare me because honestly, there is nothing scarier in this world than human beings. But I hope that everyone has a really great day. I'm really sorry about my makeup, especially my eyeshadow. I didn't blend it. I don't know. Some days I just have really bad ADHD, and today is one of those days. And I don't even know. I don't know. Girl, I don't know. Okay, bye.
Be careful what you say out loud because there may be things that are listening. So this guy says that growing up, he was bullied a lot, he didn't have many friends, and he was always by himself. His dad had actually gone to the United States for work and they were in Mexico, and then his mom also left him with his grandparents because she also had to work. He says that his grandfather was really mean. It almost felt like his grandfather didn't like him, and in that town, everybody respected him. His grandfather needed like the smallest of excuse to beat him up, and that sometimes his grandmother would try to defend him, and his grandmother would also end up getting beaten up by the grandfather as well. With time, he ended up having so much resentment, so much anger, because not only was he not having a good time at home, but at school, he was also getting bullied. He says that the kids at school would scream at him, orphan, and that sometimes they wanted to beat him up, which is why most of the time he wanted to eat his lunch in like a hallway or like a corner of a building where nobody could see where he was. So one day, as he's sitting in the corner with nobody around him, he decided to tell the wind all of his problems aloud. He felt good letting it out, so the next following days he would do the same thing during lunch. He would go to be by himself and just say all of his problems out loud. He would always go to the same spot. He would again say his problems out loud, and that was until the wind actually spoke back to him. He explains that this voice almost went inside of his head and started giving him some advice. One day he was on a swing, swinging back and forth until a group of little boys and girls came and literally dropped him off of the swing. They told him to get away from their swings, and he ended up going back to that spot to be by himself because he was already humiliated enough. That is when the voice asked him, "Do you want me to take care of them for you?" He said yes, and that was when the voice tells him to draw a circle on the dirt that was in front of him, write the kids' names, and to cross out the names with an X. He didn't understand why he was listening to the voice because at that point he thought he was going a little bit crazy, but then on the same note, he thought to himself, hey, at least one person is worried about me. Somebody wants to take care of me. He drew the circles, he puts the names, he X'd them out, and then he just waited. Not a lot of time passed before some of the kids started having accidents. At
At first was one of the bullies who would play soccer. Everybody was around watching them play when out of nowhere he fell, and it was a bad fall, like a really bad angle, and he started crying from the pain. The little kid who had fallen and was crying and was saying that somebody had pushed them, but the coach was watching him at the time and said, no, nobody was around you, you just tripped and fell. And the kid insisted that somebody had pushed him really hard. Next was the annoying little girl who thought she was the owner of the swings. On this day, he was actually with a boy who was new to the school but was already getting bullied by the rest of the kids. He actually told this kid about his, what he was calling, imaginary friend, but the kid didn't believe him. He wanted to prove to his new friend that what he was saying was true, so he told him, okay, watch. He drew a circle on the dirt, he put the name of that girl who had just taken them away from the swings, and he drew an X on top of her name, and he says, okay, now watch her. Minutes pass, and one of the swings that the girl was on, the chain actually broke. She went flying and lost her breath when she landed on the ground. Obviously, all the teachers went running to this little girl. After she was able to breathe again, they said she was fine, she didn't need to go see the nurse. And when he turned to look at his new friend, his friend was like pale, and his friend asked him, how did you do this? The bell rang, so they had to go back inside the school, but he promised his friend that he would tell him how a different day. There was another day where he was really sad and he was crying because he missed his mom so much and he really wanted her to come back for him. And that was when the voice tells him, hey, don't worry, your mom's gonna come back to you very soon, okay? And that is exactly what happened. Around 2 or 3 days after that, his mom came back saying that she just didn't want to be away from him anymore. His mom told him that she might be needing his help in order for them to not be broke or homeless, and he agreed to help her. He explains that one of the worst episodes came after that. There was this kid in that town that was very respected because his mother was like a ringleader. So obviously because of this little kid who was also his age felt that he was untouchable. So on some of the nights in that town, people would have flea markets, and he agreed to help his mom sell food at that place. They had ran out of a certain ingredient, so his mom asked him to go get more, and he agreed. And that was when he bumped into this little boy and his bully ass friends. They were all telling him that they should fight like one-on-one, but he knew that if he agreed to fight, it wouldn't be on one-on-one fair fight. They were gonna jump him. Unfortunately, he didn't have a choice. He started fighting, and then all 7 of them basically jumped him, and he doesn't even know how he got out of there, but he was able to get up and just run away from them. He ran straight to his mom, and obviously his mom saw that he was beaten up, but he didn't want to talk about it, so she let it go for the moment. The following day, they had to go to school, and that little boy also went to school with them, and for some reason really hated him to the point where he brought a pew-pew to school and threatened him with it, saying that he was going to end his life. He explained that the teachers actually took that gun away from the kid, but the kid was telling him that it wasn't over. The school did end up calling the mom, telling her what happened, and when he got home, the mom told them, we need to get out of here, we're moving away from this town, because apparently the boy's mom was very popular, like people knew her because she was not a good person, and if that boy hated his kid, that means that that lady was gonna come after the family. The mom also explained that she needed to leave because if somebody had done something to her son, nobody in that town would do anything about it because they were all scared of that lady. He did end up leaving that school, and they moved back into the city. As they're leaving this town, that's when he heard the voice again, and the voice tells him, please leave in peace, I'll take care of them. A few months after moving away from that town, they received some news that, crime lady, the mom, the son that threatened him, and an older son had actually died in a car accident. Apparently, they were driving down one of the roads out in the middle of nowhere when the car just flipped and exploded, and they were all basically burned alive. He didn't want that. He only wanted for his friend to scare them, not necessarily take their lives. Till this day, he doesn't know if maybe that was just a coincidence or if it really was his imaginary friend. What do you guys think?
Do you think when you're using substances that you're more susceptible to evil in the paranormal sense? This girl emailed me and said that she met Satan during one of her sleep paralysis episodes. This story is utterly terrifying. So we're gonna call this person B for the story. So this happened in Norway in 2022, and B was 21 years old. So B was raised in a Christian family, and when she was around 14 or 15 years old, she developed a deeper relationship with her faith. She became confident in what she believed in, and she's always been very sensitive to energy. So she can very easily pick up on other people's emotions and just like the atmosphere in rooms. Now, B isn't very new to the paranormal. She has occasionally experienced things, but they weren't anything huge. Like she would experience shadows or movement out of the corner of her eye, or just a strong sense of presence that no one one else could feel. She doesn't claim to know what these experiences were or what they are, but she's always felt aware of something beyond the physical. Now, the following event that I'm about to describe happened during one of the darkest periods of her life. She had recently ended a relationship with a boyfriend who had been psychologically abusive, and she was mad at herself for this. This sent her into a deep depression. She felt guilt and shame for having allowed this relationship to continue for so long, which, by the way, that is not your fault. And she blamed herself essentially for staying and letting somebody control and diminish her life. So she started drinking. She partied often. She ate poorly. She stopped taking responsibilities for her studies, and her days just became empty. She would eat a little, sleep, party, repeat. And that's all she did. Then one ordinary weekday night, something happened that would change everything. So B goes to bed as usual. She hadn't been drinking. She wasn't exhausted in any way, but she's sleeping and she wakes up around 3 o'clock in the morning and she realizes that she can't move. Her head is slightly lifted above her body on a pillow. Now, she immediately realizes that she's in sleep paralysis. And at this point, she's like, oh no. This is scary. I don't like this. And then she realizes that there is something standing at the end of her bed. She said that whatever this was a very tall, shadowy figure that had the shape sort of a human, but didn't look human in the same sense as a human. On its head was something that humans do not have, and that was 2 horn shapes on each side. She couldn't see the details, only darkness and form. So she starts to feel this overwhelming fear because she does not know what is at the end of her bed. And whatever this is not good. And she can feel that it is not good. So she tries to scream and she cannot scream. She tries to move. Her body's not responding. She starts to sweat, physically sweat. And it's this overwhelming fear that is about to send her into a panic attack. Then the figure moves, and it moves just a little closer. And then a little closer, and then it climbs on top of the bed. Now, as this is happening, she is just frozen. She doesn't know what to do. She's just watching it happen, and she can't do anything about it. And it finally gets to a point where it is laying directly next to her. At this point, it eases its way up to her, and it presses its body against her. She starts to realize that whatever this thing is very cold. It's extremely cold because the right side of her body where it is cold. And then it takes its arm, and it just reaches over her chest. Then it just starts pressing down. And this thing is pressing down so hard that she said that she felt like she was going to go through the mattress. She said that she felt its presence so intensely that it felt like it was breathing against her. And she realizes that it is breathing against her. It's breathing down her neck on purpose, right down her neck, as it's pressing its arm down against her through the mattress, it feels like. And as all of this is happening and she is panicking, it speaks. And it says right in her ear, I am Satan. Despite her absolute and utter terror, she knew that if she continued to panic, she was just going to make this far worse for herself. And she knew that if it was something spiritual or something negative, that the only thing that she could do was resist it. She begins praying silently within herself, and she focuses entirely on Jesus and her faith. As she's praying and trying to stay as calm as she possibly can, she suddenly realizes that there's slight movement in her fingers and then her toes. So she closes her eyes and she just continues to pray, and she prays and prays and prays until finally she regains control of her whole entire body again. When she finally regained control of her body, she just continued to pray. And she just thanked God for his guidance and for his help in that situation, because she knew that what she had just experienced was the darkest thing that she could have experienced, which was Satan. Now, she ended up by saying this, and I think that this is a really important thing for somebody who is going through what she went through to hear. She said that she knows that many people experience sleep paralysis, so this event may not seem that extraordinary. And she also noted that this was the only sleep paralysis incident that she had ever had in her life, and it was the only one since then. But the important part of the story is how it ended up changing her life. She said that she felt like she had reached such a low point mentally, physically, and spiritually that she became vulnerable to darkness. She felt like something was feeding off of her weakness, and she didn't want to live like that anymore. She returned intentionally to her faith, and she chose to strengthen her life again. She began praying consistently and attending church, and she decided to do Lent, which is fasting before Easter, and she did not decide to do this out of tradition, but out of cleansing. It helped her so much that she stopped drinking, she regained her discipline back, and she slowly but surely rebuilt her life. She believes that when you regain your inner light, whether that be through faith, discipline, or inner awareness, you become far less vulnerable to darkness in any form. She hopes that this story may inspire somebody who feels lost right now or at a low point in life. And the last thing she said was, "The way we see ourselves is the way we see the world, and the way we treat others reflects the energy we receive in return." I loved that. So what did you guys think about that story? I thought, first of all, it was terrifying, and I absolutely agree with her. I definitely think that it was preying on her darkness and what she was doing to herself, because when you do things like that to yourself, when you are drinking or doing, you know, other things, it definitely makes you more susceptible to things like that. And I think that a lot of people here know that, and I know that personally from personal experience. And you'll notice that when you go through these things, you will start to experience sleep paralysis more. You will have scary things happen to you that you cannot explain, and your light will dim completely. And I think that that was Satan that laid next to her. It wasn't him specifically. I believe it was something that Satan used to get to her. So all the same to me. Drop all your thoughts, opinions, suggestions below, but please, especially in this story, you guys, especially one that deals with abuse, I need you to be respectful. Now we're gonna go into my favorite part, which is the shout outs. I wanna start off by saying that every single one of you deserve a shout out because the response that I got from my addiction video was overwhelming. To all of you who have clean dates or who have been sober and said that in the video, I haven't gotten to all the comments yet, but I plan to get to every single one on that video. Congratulations, you should be so proud of yourself. And I am so proud of you, and thank you for sharing that with me and with all of us. Thank you to those of you who support me enough to encourage me after posting that video, because that was a tough video to post. You know, I was nervous to post it, number one, and number two, it's super emotional for me, and crying on camera is difficult sometimes. Now I'll get into the shout outs. Alethea DW Woods. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for the response that you gave me underneath my video. That was so nice, and that comment really just made me smile so much. I appreciate your support with my addiction and what you said. I appreciate you being a part of my community. I appreciate you watching my spooky stories and supporting me with everything. You have no idea what that type of support means to me, and I just want to tell you how much I truly appreciate you. I love you. Echo Bobecco 555. First of all, thank you so much for the comment that you left underneath that video. Also, congratulations. I hope you are so proud of yourself. That is amazing. I love hearing that so much. That was filled with comments saying that people were in recovery, and that just melted my heart. So congratulations. I truly hope you have others around you that are supporting you, that are as proud of you as they should be. And I thank you for your support with me and even for my stories and being a part of my community. I love you. And my name is Kaisa, and I tell your paranormal experiences on here or ones that you recommend to me every single night. So if you're into that, hit that follow button. And I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? Keep sending me your scary stories. Have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you so much, my spooky babies. I'll see you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.